Hello, and welcome to the episode Todd Talks, and Todd Talks people listen. Hopefully. And today, my quest for redemption begins. Because I am 1 and 2 in this season of Death Battle, and the Todd is not happy. So I am going to try my hardest to pick the right one. In regards to the next Death Battle coming out with Heihachi Mishima versus Geese Howard. Yes, we are going to the fighting games once again, and I'm actually very, very excited. And I have it on good authority that the battle track for this one is going to be really, really epic. So we shall see. And thus we shall start with, of course, Heihachi Mishima. So Heihachi was the son of Jinpachi, can't make these names up, and who had control of a company known as the Mishima Zaibatsu. It's also called the what was it, like Energy Core or something like that. It's a weird thing. But when he was younger, Heihachi didn't feel that his father was doing enough to raise the standard of the company. So after a lot of events that I will get to, don't worry, he just decided to straight up, I'm gonna take over, and so he did, including apparently locking his father in a basement so he could get possessed by a demon. Okay, and you all thought fighting games were basic titles. And after he took over the Mishima Zaibatsu, he turned it into one of the grandest and greatest companies ever, including having a military force that, as Jin would later show, is powerful enough to basically take over the world and start a world war. Fun. Now, he wasn't just doing this for vanity, though. He really wanted power. He wanted power absolute, both externally, internally, and what's more. And he always recognized the threats to his reign, mainly his family, because as it turned out, his son is a dick, and that's Katsuya, and his grandson is complicated. That would be Jin, who we've seen in Death Battle. So he has trained himself over the years in the Mishima karate style, which is, as Boomstick liked to joke, a variant on the hard, soft karate style with the focus on overwhelming power. And he has used that to great effect, including winning his own tournament of the King of Iron Fist tournament. And when he repeatedly would get fought, beaten, killed, and what's more, he just kept coming back. Because I said his greatest threat to his reign was his children. Or his child. Technically, he has two children because Lars is technically illegitimate son. But we're not talking about him. But yeah, he was a threat, and Katsuya was a threat, and then his grandson and Jin was a threat, and it all has to do, well, most of it has to do with the evil that is the devil gene. Now, if you recall, the devil gene is a parasitic entity or life force, if you will, that corrupts the host. Now, a lot of people thought that it was Heihachi from which this devil gene was born. It was not. It was Kazumi, his wife. And in fact, her story all but contradicts the perception of Heihachi Mishima, because when he was young, Heihachi was young, he met Kazumi while training with his father in the family dojo. They fell in love and had a kid, and he was great. He was happy with it. He was happy to have a son and a wife and everything. And then all of a sudden, she attacks him one day. He survives, and she doesn't remember anything. But eventually, she realizes that she has the devil in her, and she reveals that her family had sent her to kill Heihachi as vengeance for some past sin or whatever. And so, even though at one point she regains consciousness from the devil and begs for her life, Heihachi doesn't feel so good about this, so kills her. Or I'm sorry, he kills her. It's complicated. Anyway. And but ever since then, he's been watching the other members of his family to see if they bear the devil gene. Kazuya did, so he tossed him off a cliff to see if he survived. He did, and thus had the devil gene. And then when Jin came to him and he saw that he had the same markings of the devil gene, he shot him in the head, And then Jin got back up. But again, we're not talking about Jin here. The reason I bring this up is that he's had to consistently fight both Jin and Kazuya, and among others, to try and assert his power and usurp them when they've overthrown it. For example, in the first Tekken game, Kazuya beats Heihachi, and Heihachi goes into exile, and so he can retrain and come back for the second King of Iron Fist tournament, which he wins by beating Kazuya. And then Jin shows up, and then he has to win the tournament, and then it just gets complicated from there. But again, there's only 7 games and some spin-offs, but it's a big thing. And they had movies. So anyway, Heihachi's strengths are absolutely his just desire to be stronger and his willingness to do just about anything to win a fight. Again, he threw his son off a cliff, he shot his grandson, killed his wife, and then, as you've seen via various other cutscenes, in one situation, he tied Jin, Kazuya, and Jinbachi, who was still alive, and strapped them to a rocket and shot them up into space because he could. And in another situation, he was in space with Jin, and he kicked Jin so that he would fall into the atmosphere and burn up. It didn't take. And then, of course, there was Tekken 7, where he was willing to fight Kazuya on a volcano with everything going crazy. He fought him twice to try and settle the score once and for all. And then there's Tekken 5, where he was ambushed by a bunch of Jax robots. That's Jakks. Jax robots, and was blown up, was declared dead by Raven. Not so much. All right, he's just unwilling to die. All right, and I'm still holding off on one key feat in terms of his deaths, because we're going to get to that later. Now, the problem, though, is that while he is an absolutely incredible fighter, able to defeat an army of robots, able to beat Kazuya and Jin, he's so arrogant. All right, this is almost like in a Doom and Luthor territory in terms of, and I'm still bitter about that one, by the way. Territory, because he thinks he's gonna win like all the time. He beats Jin and Kazuya, and yet he just thinks he's done. Like, it's like, oh yeah, I win. No, you don't win. He does not win. He wins occasionally, but not forever. He does get back his company multiple times, but then he had to lose that company to get it the win. But so he's a bit arrogant, but he backs it up. Again, he can power up his strikes. He's got 10-hit combos. He can summon lightning. He was the one who taught Jin how to fight, and then Jin taught himself some other martial arts to get away from Heihachi's training. And Kazuya learned from him more or less. Yes, even though he tossed him off a cliff. Again, it's a family thing. What are you gonna do? I mean, what's family unless other than the people you throw off of cliffs and put into volcanoes? Now, but of course, at the end of Tekken 7, he does die definitively, royally, epically. But even then, he was willing to go up against Kazuya in devil form and fight him and lose to him. Got back up, then fought Kazuya in his regular human form, and only then did he die. But it took literally 7 games, an explosion, multiple devil forms, multiple fake deaths, a special character who we'll get to later, and more just to kill him. Yeah. So there's a reason Heihachi's a literal boss. Okay. But again, is he a villain, though, is debatable, because while he has done terrible things to assert power, his honest to goodness goal was just to get rid of the devil gene. He always hated that Kazumi died, yes, by his neck snap, but because the devil in her made her attack him. Okay, and he tried to kill Kazuya and Jin to get rid of the devil gene. He even tried to expose them to the world, and he did at certain points to try and expose the devil gene to show that this is the evil he's been trying to fight this whole time. So while he is absolutely a jerk and not out of the year territory at all, he does have some good points about things. And if you recall, the Jin death battle, even Wiz and Boomstick were like, yeah, he's not a hero. So, yeah, such is the world we live in Tekken. Moving on, we have Geese Howard. Goose, no, Geese. Geese Howard. And his story is definitely not what you might expect from a crime boss, if you will. Because he is the son of a terrorist. Yeah, that shows that this was in the 90s. He was the son of a terrorist and an American woman. And his father basically cast his mother and him out. So when she died, he went after his father to kill him, and his half brother made sure that didn't happen. And that lesson, a scar that he has over his eye, I think it's his left eye, sorry, a scar he has over his eye, taught him what he felt was the most important lesson in his life: that strength gives you results, and only that. So he went and he learned under a martial arts master, was like Tung, something like that. Sorry, a martial arts master in the art of the Hakyo Huseiken. See, I could say that, but I can't say the martial arts master name. That's on me. I'm sorry. Yes, he learned the Hakyo Huseiken, which is literally the art of what was it? The art of the eight extremities holy fist or something like that. And basically, it means that he could channel energy from the earth itself to power up his attacks. This is the same technique that Terry Bogard, who has also been in Death Battle, has learned. Also, I want to time out here. I do want to apologize. Last episode, I said that the only King of Fighters / Fatal Fury character we've met in Death Battle was Terry Bogard. I forgot about Mai Shiranui. I do apologize. Time in. So he learned the techniques, and his overall style was more of a defensive counter system, with blocks and throws and locks, and it was meant to basically use his opponent's own power against it. But because of the style he learned, he wasn't exactly good for offensive strikes. So he mixed that with certain other styles with the simple goal of being stronger and being better and being able to get revenge on those who hurt him, as well as assert authority over Southtown in USA and becoming a major criminal empire, which did not sit well with his master. And so instead of teaching the final techniques of the school to Geese, the master gave the scrolls with the techniques to Jeff Bogard. Yeah, that's where it all ties in. Because eventually Geese found Jeff Bogard, who happened to have adopted two sons named Terry and Andy. And he straight up murdered him. Like, straight up took the scrolls and left, leaving two rivals to kill him in due time. So, fast forward about 10 years, Geese has took over most of the Southtown Mafia. And he even established his own legitimate corporation to give you protection from the mafia that he ran. Oh, Geese. So smart. Anyway, but through his own techniques and training, he was a literal force to be reckoned with. And to prove this and to get better soldiers for his own army, he created the King of Fighters tournament. And this is where things get a little tricky, because technically speaking, Geese first appeared in Art of Fighting and not Fatal Fury King of Fighters. And then obviously Art of Fighting became Fatal Fury, and then Fatal Fury became King of Fighters. It's a fusion kind of thing, but needless to say, Geese made the King of Fighters tournament. And at this point in time, at least in the Fatal Fury universe, Terry Bogard shows up. And Terry had been training the last 10 years alongside Andy so that he could go and fight Geese. Now, the good news is that he was able to beat Geese in a battle that was likened to a war of starving wolves, which is why Terry became the legendary Hungry Wolf. And so that was how brutal it was. That's how intense it was. And he just straight up kicked him out of a window and he fell to his death. Or did he? Because he came back. Right, because remember the scroll that I mentioned? Well, apparently the scroll was a secret technique of healing faster. Yes, the reason that he was able to survive was because he learned a technique to allow his body to heal faster than it should have. And this was a tall building. Like, this wasn't like 10, 20 feet. This was like hundreds and hundreds of feet up. So sorry. So, yeah, he survived that, came back, fought Terry again, and then got kicked off the same building. And he was saved. he was saved by Terry Bogard because he didn't want to kill Geese Howard, and you know what Geese did? He ripped his arm away and fell to his death laughing like a total boss. All right, and but yeah, and then he came back again. Yeah. So, I mean, it's technically canon. He came back. It was like a nightmare version, and then there was the one that Boomstick was fawning all over. We're not getting into that one. But so yeah, think about it. He let himself die. That's how boss he was. All right, he let himself die. Now, the question here is about skill, because obviously we know he was a tough martial arts master of multiple styles based on his own version of hard soft style, and as well as other Japanese and martial arts which he used to kind of balance out the counter moves with his own strikes. And as we know, he has the Hakyo Huseiken, which he's been shown in like the anime and the movies to do incredible things, like blast. What was her name? Lily. Yeah, I think it was like Lily or something. He blasted her so hard, shot her out a window, and she landed on her head. I saw the clip. I'm like, oh, she did. These sometimes these animes just don't hold back on the brutality. You know what I mean? So, but his power wave was enough to severely cripple Jeff Bogart, who again was his fellow student at the school he learned at, and him, Jeff Geese, and another guy whose name escapes me, I'm sorry, were known as the three godly battlers or something like that. That's how good they were. All right, and yet he was able to take down Jeff with minimal effort. Now, yes, Jeff was attacked and stabbed by Geese's henchmen, but he was able to fight them off, and yet Geese still beat him and killed him with a punch to the chest. Wow. Another time when he fought Terry, this was in the anime. Uh, he Terry did his power wave, and Geese, who was like about 10, 20 feet away from him, blinked out of existence and reappeared next to him and was able to do one of his charged energy moves, and it caused Terry to bleed heavily. All right, and again, though Terry did beat him twice, it specifically stated that the fight was incredibly close and intense. Again, the battle of the starving wolves. So while he did win, and while Terry was obviously stronger than Geese both times, Geese was Geese was powerful. All right, and again, he was able to strong arm and control mafia along with the corporation. He had bodyguards who were incredibly powerful, and so on and so forth. And so Geese powered, as weird as his name is. Also, someone pointed out to me, why wouldn't they call him Geese, since Howard was a duck? Connections. So Geese is much stronger and faster than people probably give credit for. But he also is lost into several characters, including Rio, not Uo, Rio from Art of Fighting, which is where Geese was first established, and then he lost to Terry twice, even though he was ready for him the second time in Fatal Fury 3, I believe. So though he is good, and he is never a person to underestimate an opponent. Though he is strong and smart and willing to go the distance, he still is lost. And even in Art of Fighting, it was stating that despite his power, he wasn't able to take over all of Southtown like he wanted. Was it Southland or Southtown? That doesn't matter now. But he wasn't able to take over the area completely like he wanted to. So he does have his problems. So 19 minutes in, I think we're ahead of schedule this time. So who wins between Heihachi Mishima and Geese Howard? I, for the longest time, thought that it was Geese. All right, his defensive style is incredible. His abilities are just insane, including like the Hakyo Huseiken, being able to absorb the power from the earth and supercharge his shots. But also, if you want to do like comparisons, Geese lost to Terry, and Terry in Death Battle beat Ken. Okay, actually, I can't make that comparison just yet. I was gonna say that Ken had beaten a certain person who had beaten a certain person, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. So Geese, for me, for a while, I thought had the advantage because of his defensive fighting style. Again, Heihachi's is pure aggression. All right, he has some counters of his own, as I found out, but he has his own elemental attack, so that kind of nullifies what Geese has. He prefers up close strikes. He likes combos and everything. So that you'd think that that would mix in with what Geese is doing and like play into his strategy, right? But just because you have a style that kind of matches against somebody doesn't mean you actually have the ability to kill him. Again, this is Heihachi, who has survived his death multiple times, including by his own son and grandson. In Tekken 5, remember the Jax bomb that I told you about? Raven thought he was dead because he saw the explosion. All right, I remember the cutscene where that happened. It was at an arcade of all things, and Raven said Heihachi Mishima is dead. He wasn't. He was blown miles away. It specifically says miles away, and he lived. He doesn't even know how he lived. He was just like, yeah, I lived. I might have been on the edge of death for weeks, but I got better. So, yeah, he did that. And here was the thing that sealed it for me. You ready for this? He canonically lost to Akuma and yet lived. Wait, what? So in Tekken 7, they revealed that Kazumi is his former wife that he killed. Had saved Akuma's life previously, and in return for that saving, she asked him to kill Heihachi and Kazuya, her son, so for both revenge to rid the bloodline and blah blah blah. So that was years and years previous, and in Tekken 7, Akuma finally shows up to do the deed. And Heihachi's like, wait a minute, why did you wait this long? And he goes, because I wanted you to be stronger when I beat you. Yeah, that's very Akuma. But so they fought canonically. They were fighting. Then an army of Jax robots showed up at Kazuya's request. They fought off the army. And then they fought again. And Akuma used the Raging Demon on Heihachi. And Heihachi resisted. Remember, the Raging Demon is a move that burns your soul via your sins, and regardless of whether you feel that he had a reason to, Heihachi had a lot of sins. From what he did to his father, to Jin, to Kazuma, to Kazuya, to Kazumi, and Lars, and so on and so forth. He had a lot of sins, and yet he resisted and faked his own death. Okay? And then Akuma went and fought Kazuya and went Shin Akuma against the Devil Gene form, and they battled ended in a stalemate or something like that. But Akuma beat him. And if you recall, Jin versus Jin versus Ryu, Akuma was noted to have 415 megatons of power from destroying that island, and he was going all out against Heihachi. All right, he was specifically trying to kill him to avenge Kazumi and fulfill his promise to her. He wasn't holding back. And again, he waited until Heihachi was at his peak to go and kill him. And he couldn't, or he couldn't with the Raging Demon. He could have with his regular fist, but he wanted the Raging Demon, probably because of poetic justice or whatever. But he fought Heihachi, who lost to him clean, and had to fake his own death to get Akuma to go away. And then Akuma went and fought Kazuya, and arguably probably could have beaten him, but story had to prevent that. And so, if Heihachi could survive an explosion at point blank range, rewatch the cutscene, point blank range, and be sent miles away and live, if he could go and survive the Raging freaking Demon and live, all right, and rewatch Jin and Ryu. It's one of them caption boxes they put up at the top during the recap. That's where they make the stat. So if he could survive that, all of that, are you really telling me he can't survive what Geese has? Yes, Geese is powerful. Geese is incredibly powerful, but Heihachi's had to face people like him before. He has to fight Kazuya often, in frequency. All right, he beat Kazuya before, include I think one time in the devil form, and if not even then, he was very powerful in his human form. Um, he's had to fight Jin multiple times. We all know he's a very capable fighter. He's had to fight armies of robots and everything. He is incredibly powerful. Now, yes, he will underestimate Geese. All right, that's almost his nature is to underestimate Geese Howard. Or sorry, underestimate his opponents. Unlike Geese, who never underestimates his opponent because he doesn't want to lose. But when he gets serious, he will fight and he will do what he has to do to win. And while Geese has incredible feats, including surviving the feat of getting kicked off a building. It didn't take. It took the second time. It worked the second time, and he died. It's canonic. He died. Whereas Heihachi had to go up against Devil Form Devil Form Kazuya and regular Kazuya, and he fought Akuma and Shin in the three-way. Uh, then finally, he died. That took a lot. So, thank you, Death Battle, and I'm glad I rewatched those videos of Terry and Ken. Okay, I was gonna say that before I mentioned the comparison. Terry beat Ken. Ken technically has beaten Ryu, and then Ryu has beaten Akuma. So I was like, isn't that a fair comparison? But then I realized, wait a minute, technically Ken hasn't. He hasn't beaten Ryu technically, and he wasn't going full Muno Ken at that time when he beat Ryu. So it's like kind of like Kazuya regular form versus Kazuya Devil Gene. So anyway, despite my earlier inclinations that Geese Howard was going to pull this out, I truly hope and pray that Heihachi Mishima is going to win because that is my pick. I am picking Heihachi Mishima, and if I am able to, I'll go and do the whole. I got the hair. I could probably slick it up and get a Mishima haircut. I can't do the facial hair though. I'm sorry on that. So with that, I am ending this episode of Todd Talk. Who do you think is going to win in the fight between Heihachi Mishima and Goose Howard? Um, what do you think? There's going to be a sprite fight for the record. We already know that. But it's going to be set on a volcano because, of course, it is. So who do you think is going to win? How do you think the death blow is going to be done? Will they go into the volcano? We all know they're going to the volcano. Let me know in the comments below. So, thank you for watching. If you made this far, I know you were listening, and I'll see you around.